Do y'all feel that absolute chill in the Hollywood air? Or is it just the icy cold reality finally crashing down on the ultimate internet IT girl? Hold on to your seats, because the absolute unthinkable has just happened in the Harvey empire, and the fallout is so massive it's completely short-circuiting the gossip blogs. For years, we watched Steve Harvey protect his adoptive daughter like she was the ultimate, untouchable crown jewel of the family, but the golden pedestal has officially shattered into a million unfixable pieces. The streets are absolutely screaming with the news that Daddy Steve has finally reached his absolute limit, packed up his dignity, and legally, financially, and socially cut ties with Lori Harvey for good. Can you blame the man for finally waking up to the endless nightmare? Imagine building a multi-million-dollar global legacy based entirely on respectable family values and traditional relationship blueprints, only for your own daughter to treat the industry dating pool like her personal, revolving door spreadsheet. But wait, it gets so much pettier, because you already know Michael B. Jordan is sitting back in his mansion, watching this entire family exile go down, and laughing his absolute head off. Word on the street is MBJ's camp is openly mocking the situation, dropping major shade about how he isn't surprised at all that Steve finally woke up and smelled the calculated mess. Is Lori Harvey's elite, high-earning reign as the internet's favorite arm candy officially over? Did she finally play her cards so wrong that even the ultimate protective alpha dad had to permanently kick her out of the kingdom? Let's get straight into the scandalous details of how it all fell apart. The shockwaves from this absolute family betrayal are currently tearing through the highest echelons of Hollywood, leaving everyone completely breathless as the truth behind closed doors finally spills out. We are talking about a full-blown civil war inside the Harvey household, a calculated corporate and personal erasure that nobody saw coming but everyone secretly expected. For the past few years, anyone with eyes could see that the math simply wasn't mathing when it came to Lori Harvey's spectacular, high-flying lifestyle and the highly conservative, pristine family brand that Steve Harvey spent decades sweating blood to build. Steve didn't just wake up one morning and decide to throw his absolute favorite child to the wolves, because this has been a slow, agonizing burn that finally reached maximum combustion behind the scenes. The industry is whispering that the breaking point didn't happen quietly, but rather with a massive, explosive showdown where legal documents were thrown, voices were raised, and the ultimate line in the sand was drawn. Steve Harvey, the man who built an entire empire telling people how to act like a lady and think like a man, realized that his own stepdaughter was completely rewriting his playbook in the worst possible way, and he decided he was no longer going to finance or protect the destruction of his own name. To fully understand the gravity of this sudden exile, you have to look at the sheer, unadulterated hypocrisy that Steve was forced to swallow every single day, while Lori was out here collecting high-profile men like infinity stones. We are talking about a man whose entire modern brand is built on being the ultimate, respectable family patriarch who looks you dead in the eye and tells you how to protect your dignity. Yet, while he was on television screens across the globe preaching about vetting suitors, setting high standards, and maintaining a clean family image, the internet was treating his household like a literal Comedy Central roast because of Lori's chaotic dating life. The contrast was becoming so wildly embarrassing that it was actively starting to hurt Steve's pockets, with corporate sponsors and high-level television executives reportedly asking heavy questions about the constant, messy headlines floating around his last name. It's one thing when your child is a regular young Hollywood socialite doing regular young Hollywood things, but it's a completely different story when her choices start actively compromising a multi-million-dollar business empire built on traditional morals. The streets are saying that Steve's team sat him down with a literal binder full of gossip blogs, blind items, and public mockery, presenting him with the harsh reality that the Harvey brand was rapidly becoming synonymous with elite industry messiness. And that is when the ultimate protective dad decided that enough was officially enough. But what makes this entire situation completely historic and delightfully petty is the absolute circus happening over in Michael B. Jordan's camp right now, because the Creed star is reportedly not holding back his laughter. You have to remember that when Michael and Lori broke up, the narrative that was pushed out to the public by the Harvey camp was heavily skewed to make Michael look like the villain who just couldn't commit or handle a real woman. There were even wild, calculated rumors floated by family insiders claiming that Michael had low-key cheated with a white ex-girlfriend. a narrative that was heavily pushed by family friends like Lisa Ray on public platforms while Lori and her mother Marjorie sat back in silence, letting his reputation take a massive hit. Michael B. Jordan had to swallow his pride, stay completely quiet, and let the internet tear him apart just to protect the peace. But karma always comes back with a vengeance and a receipt. Now that the truth is coming out that Steve himself has reportedly disowned Lori because of her questionable lifestyle, Michael's inner circle is having an absolute field day, openly mocking how the great, untouchable Lori Harvey finally got checked by the only man she couldn't manipulate, her own father. Sources close to the actor claim that Michael has been privately telling his friends that he knew this day would come, because you can only run a calculated game on a family and the public for so long before the entire house of cards comes crashing down on your head. The details leaking out about the actual separation between Steve and Lori are chillingly professional, proving that when a businessman gets pushed too far, he handles family drama like a corporate layoff. Word on the street is that Steve has officially ordered his legal team to begin the process of untangling Lori from any and all Harvey family trusts, corporate entities, and shared real estate portfolios. For years, Lori enjoyed the absolute highest level of luxury, backed by the immense financial backing and credit lines of her mega-famous stepfather, who treated her like a literal princess. He threw her the most absurdly lavish birthday parties, financed her high-fashion endeavors, and provided the ultimate safety net that allowed her to move through Hollywood with supreme confidence. But according to highly placed industry insiders, those black cards have been officially deactivated, the private jet privileges have been revoked, and she has been given a strict timeline to remove her name from the family's primary assets. It is a total financial and social blackout, a move so severe that it has reportedly left Lori's mother, Marjorie, completely trapped in the middle of a brutal marital standoff. Marjorie has spent years ensuring that Lori was positioned as the supreme star of the family, often causing massive internal rifts with Steve's biological children, who felt completely pushed into the shadows while the stepdaughter took center stage. Now that Steve has laid down the law, the entire family structure is fractured, with the biological siblings reportedly celebrating the end of the favoritism, while Marjorie desperately tries to salvage Lori's standing before the door closes permanently. The real tea, however, lies in the absolute exhaustion that Steve has been displaying in his recent public appearances, where he can no longer even hide the disgust and disappointment rolling off his shoulders. If you go back and watch his recent interviews with a magnifying glass, the body language speaks volumes louder than any press release ever could. When podcast hosts subtly bring up Lori's name, or ask general questions about fatherhood and protecting his daughters, Steve's entire demeanor shifts from the charismatic, laughing comedian to a deeply frustrated, defensive older man. He has been dropping heavy, passive-aggressive hints about how he has had to swallow his pride, bite his tongue, and tolerate things inside his house that go completely against his spirit. For a man who makes a literal living being the loudest, most opinionated person in the room, admitting that he had to force himself to stay quiet is the ultimate cry for help. He openly detailed the toxic household rule, where he is forced to automatically hate and ignore any man that Lori decides to discard, revealing how he can't even acknowledge or shake hands with established, respectable men in public spaces without facing absolute hell at home. The streets are saying that Steve grew completely tired of looking like a hypocrite in front of his peers, realizing that he was losing the respect of solid, powerful men in the industry just to protect a daughter who showed zero respect for his legacy in return. The whisper networks are also buzzing with the absolute worst-kept secret in the high society entertainment circuits, which is the true nature of Lori's mysterious, high-earning lifestyle that supposedly drove Steve over the edge. For years, the internet has been plagued by relentless blind items and highly descriptive rumors alleging that Lori's rise to fame wasn't just built on modeling contracts and skincare lines, but rather on a highly lucrative, elite yachting and arm candy network. The allegations suggest that she operates under highly confidential, multi-million-dollar rental contracts where prominent, wealthy, or closeted industry men pay top dollar to have her appear as their stunning, high-profile partner for a weekend, a month, or a promotional cycle just to boost their public image and ego. To the outside world, it looks like a whirlwind romance with a rapper, an actor, or an athlete, but behind closed doors, it is reportedly a cold, hard business transaction with strict non-disclosure agreements. While Lori was living it up in luxury, these nasty, recurring rumors were a constant source of deep shame and anxiety for Steve, who operates in highly traditional, old-school circles where a daughter's reputation is a direct reflection of her father's honor. Insiders claim that Steve recently caught wind of an upcoming, explosive investigative report or an unredacted blind item that threatened to provide hard, undeniable proof of these elite arrangements. And instead of staying on board to sink with the ship, he chose to cut the anchor and let Lori navigate the storm entirely on her own. This brings us to the ultimate, heartbreaking realization that the beautiful, protective alpha dad dynamic we all admired on television was completely one-sided, and that Steve's immense love was ultimately met with global second-hand embarrassment. Anyone who followed the Harveys knows that Steve didn't just adopt Lori, he actively put her on a literal pedestal above everyone else, treating her like the supreme crown jewel of his entire life. He gave her his name, shielded her from the vicious Hollywood media when she was involved in hit-and-run accidents and messy situationships, and constantly reminded the world that she was his daughter, period. He defended her honor against the internet, against the blogs, and most tragically, against his own biological children who tried to warn him about her calculated behavior. The biological kids are reportedly feeling a massive sense of vindication right now, because they always maintained that Lori was using the Harvey name as a corporate shield to build her own brand while contributing absolutely nothing but chaos to the family's actual honor. Now that the shield has been completely removed, the entertainment industry is watching closely to see how Lori will survive without the massive, protective shadow of Steve Harvey backing her every move. Especially now that the ultimate Hollywood golden boy is leading the charge in mocking her downfall. The fallout from this corporate and emotional severance is spreading like wildfire through the industry, and the dominoes are falling faster than anyone could have predicted. With the video establishing the brutal corporate blackout, and Steve's decision to untangle his legacy from Lori's name, we enter a much darker, highly calculated phase of this Hollywood civil war. The silence coming from Lori's camp is absolutely deafening right now, but behind closed doors, her public relations team is reportedly working in overtime, completely panicking because they realize that without the Harvey machine backing her, the brand is bleeding out. For years, the narrative was always that Lori was the untouchable, elite prize that every man in the industry was desperate to secure for 5 minutes of fame. But now that the ultimate patriarch has pulled his endorsement, the curtain is being pulled back, and the industry is looking at her through a completely different, highly critical lens. It turns out that when you lose the backing of a media mogul who controls multiple major television networks, radio syndications, and global platforms, your social currency drops to an absolute zero overnight. While Lori's team tries to figure out how to spin a narrative where a father disowns his favorite daughter, Michael B. Jordan's inner circle is dropping absolute tactical bombs of shade across the internet. Sources close to the Creed actor claim that Michael has been privately celebrating what he calls the ultimate cosmic justice. You have to remember how deeply calculated the smear campaign against Michael was when that breakup initially went down. The Harvey family machine didn't just let him walk away. They reportedly tried to completely tarnish his reputation as Hollywood's premier, respectable leading man by floating malicious, unverified stories to family friends and talk show hosts. Michael had to sit back and watch his hard-earned reputation get dragged through the mud by people he considered family, all while Lori smiled for the paparazzi on yachts with her next target. Now, Michael is reportedly telling his high-profile industry friends that Steve's sudden decision to cut Lori off is proof that the truth always finds a way out. Michael's camp is low-key letting it be known that during his time dating Lori, he witnessed firsthand the immense pressure Steve was under to constantly clean up her messy trails, and Michael allegedly warned Steve years ago that protecting her behavior would eventually backfire on his own career. The investigative findings leaking from deep within the financial sectors of Hollywood suggest that the actual execution of this separation was colder than anyone could have imagined. This wasn't just a dramatic argument over Sunday dinner. This was a coordinated, high-level legal extraction. Reports indicate that Steve's forensic accountants spent 3 weeks auditing every single credit line, corporate entity, and luxury asset tied to Lori's name. The results of that audit were reportedly so alarming that Steve was left with absolutely no choice but to completely sever ties to protect his own personal wealth from potential legal liabilities. For years, Lori's skincare line and various modeling endeavors were heavily subsidized by corporate structures tied directly to Steve's production companies. The office spaces, the high-level marketing executives, the global distribution connections, all of it was powered by the Harvey empire. Word on the street is that Steve has officially pulled the plug on all auxiliary funding, meaning Lori's businesses are now forced to operate as completely independent entities for the first time in her life. Industry experts are already predicting a massive financial crisis for her brand, as the overhead costs of maintaining an elite, billionaire-adjacent lifestyle without a billionaire stepfather's credit card are completely unsustainable. But the financial bleeding is nothing compared to the absolute psychological warfare happening inside the Harvey mansion right now. Marjorie Harvey, Steve's wife and Lori's biological mother, is reportedly living through her own absolute worst nightmare. Marjorie has spent the last 2 decades meticulously curating an image of extreme wealth, high fashion dominance, and ultimate family perfection. She was the one who allegedly pushed Lori into the high society spotlight, coaching her on how to navigate elite circles and secure relationships with the most powerful men in entertainment. Now that Steve has laid down the law, Marjorie finds herself in a position where she has to choose between her loyalty to her biological daughter and the multi-million-dollar empire controlled entirely by her husband. Insiders claim that Marjorie tried to use her immense influence over Steve to get him to reverse the blackout, throwing massive tantrums and threatening to walk away from the marriage entirely. But this time, Steve reportedly stood his ground like a stone wall, telling her that if she wants to pack her bags and join Lori in exile, he will gladly have his lawyers draft the divorce papers by Monday morning. This level of firm defiance from Steve has completely shocked everyone in their circle, proving that the funny, lovable family man has officially transformed into an unyielding businessman who is done being played for a fool. As the internal foundation of the family crumbles, the public reactions are pouring in, and the internet is showing absolutely zero mercy to the fallen IT girl. For years, Lori built a massive following of women who praised her for being a ruthless player in the dating game. A woman who supposedly taught women how to use men for status without ever getting emotionally attached. But now that the narrative has shifted from a powerful woman choosing her own destiny to a daughter being legally evicted from a family empire due to questionable behavior, the public sentiment has turned incredibly sour. The comment sections across major gossip platforms are flooded with people pointing out the immense hypocrisy of her entire brand. Fans are suddenly realizing that her lifestyle wasn't a product of independent boss chick energy, but rather the result of a protective stepfather pouring millions of dollars into maintaining a pristine illusion. The absolute mockery has reached such a fever pitch that major fashion houses and luxury brands, who once scrambled to have Lori sit in their front rows at Paris Fashion Week, are reportedly pausing their current contracts with her. In Hollywood, the only thing worse than being controversial is losing your institutional backing. And without Steve Harvey's name attached to her, luxury brands are realizing that Lori doesn't command the actual respect or demographic influence required to justify her massive price tag. To make matters infinitely worse, anonymous sources from within the elite entertainment industry are starting to drop highly detailed, terrifying leaks about the actual reasons behind Steve's sudden panic. It is being heavily whispered that this separation wasn't just triggered by general embarrassment, but by an active, high-level investigation that is currently brewing behind the scenes. For a long time, blind items have hinted at the dark underbelly of the elite influencer and modeling world, specifically targeting high-profile women who travel frequently to Dubai, St. Tropez, and Miami on private jets without any visible source of income that matches their expenditures. The streets are saying that a prominent federal agency has been quietly looking into a massive luxury yachting and escort ring that caters exclusively to billionaire foreign nationals, tech moguls, and high-ranking political figures. Lori's name has allegedly surfaced on multiple passenger manifests and private club registries associated with this ongoing probe. While there are currently no official charges laid against her, the mere mention of his daughter's name in connection with a high-level federal inquiry sent absolute shockwaves through Steve's corporate legal team. Steve, who has spent decades building a clean, family-friendly brand that relies heavily on corporate sponsorships from massive, conservative American companies, knew that even a single drop of this ink hitting the mainstream press would completely destroy his career. By cutting ties now and publicly distancing himself from her finances, Steve is tactically building a firewall around his own legacy, ensuring that if the storm finally hits Lori, the Harvey empire remains completely untouched. This brings us directly into the absolute chaos happening among Steve's biological children, who have spent years suffering in silence under the heavy shadow of Lori's extreme favoritism. For over a decade, Steve's biological daughters and sons had to watch their father pour unconditional love, financial resources, and public praise into a stepdaughter who seemingly viewed the family name as nothing more than a corporate stepping stone. Whenever the biological siblings tried to express concern over Lori's reckless behavior or her treatment of the family legacy, Steve would completely shut them down, often causing deep, unhealed trauma within the household. Now, the tables have turned in the most dramatic way possible. The biological children are reportedly stepping back into the light, taking over major executive positions within Steve's media companies that were once reserved for Lori's future expansion. Sources close to the family state that the atmosphere among the biological siblings is one of immense relief and vindication. They are finally getting the undivided attention and respect from their father that they deserved from day one, while Lori is forced to watch from the outside as the family empire continues to thrive completely without her presence. The golden child has officially become an outcast, and the transition is so sharp, so brutal, and so public that it is completely redefining the entire power dynamic of high society Hollywood. The corporate and emotional firewall that Steve Harvey has erected around his legacy is now completely fortified, leaving Lori Harvey on a barren social island as this Hollywood civil war enters its most devastating, final phase. With the financial ties officially severed and the biological children reclaiming their rightful places within the family empire, the actual legal and social fallout is beginning to manifest in ways that are completely shocking the entertainment industry. The whispers from the highest levels of Hollywood legal circles are suggesting that this isn't just a temporary family timeout, but a permanent, binding separation designed to withstand any future public relations disasters. Steve's legal team has reportedly drafted ironclad, non-disclosure agreements and liability waivers that completely insulate the Harvey name from any impending corporate, financial, or personal scandals that may arise from Lori's ongoing lifestyle choices. The streets are saying that Lori was handed a final, cold ultimatum by her former stepfather's attorneys: accept the independent separation quietly, or face a complete public exposure of the internal family audits that led to her swift eviction from the kingdom. As Lori's team desperately scrambles to find a new footing in a world where she no longer possesses the supreme Harvey shield, Michael B. Jordan's camp is reportedly continuing their victory lap with absolute masterclass precision. The mockery has transformed from private jokes into a quiet, structural blacklisting of Lori within elite Hollywood acting and producing circles. Michael, who is currently at the absolute peak of his power as a director and leading man, commands immense respect across major studios, and his inner circle is making sure that industry executives know exactly where the lines are drawn. Word on the street is that major casting directors and production houses are quietly passing on projects that feature Lori's name, simply because they do not want to risk offending Michael or losing access to Steve Harvey's massive television and radio syndication networks. The ultimate irony of the situation is that Lori once used Michael's pristine reputation to elevate her own standing and restore her dignity after her messy past situationships. But now, her calculated choices have turned both Michael and Steve into an unyielding wall of opposition that is completely shutting her out of the industry's most lucrative rooms. The structural backlash against the fallen IT girl is also hitting her directly where it hurts the most: her personal bank account and her luxury partnerships. Without the institutional backing of Steve Harvey's multi-million-dollar corporate machine, high-end fashion houses are beginning to realize that Lori's demographic influence was largely an illusion sustained by the immense prestige of her family name. Reports from major marketing firms indicate that her engagement metrics and brand value have plummeted significantly since the news of the family rift leaked to the public. For years, she was able to demand seven-figure contracts for simple brand placements, because companies knew they were essentially buying into the elite Harvey family ecosystem. Now that she has been stripped of her black cards, her private jet privileges, and her corporate subsidies, the reality of running a high-overhead luxury brand on an independent budget is causing a massive financial crisis behind the scenes of her skincare company. Insiders claim that her company is facing immediate liquidity issues, as the high-level marketing executives and distributors who were previously on Steve's payroll have abruptly walked away from her independent operation, leaving her to navigate the complex corporate world completely empty-handed. Meanwhile, the marital standoff between Steve and Marjorie Harvey has reportedly reached an absolute boiling point, threatening to completely tear apart what remains of their heavily curated public union. Marjorie, who has spent decades commanding absolute authority over the family's social calendar and fashion identity, is finding out the hard way that her husband's patience has an absolute financial limit. Sources close to the household report that the couple is currently living in separate wings of their massive estate, communication only occurring through intermediary assistants and family lawyers. Marjorie is reportedly furious that Steve refused to back down against Lori, viewing his firm stance as a direct insult to her own maternal authority, and an act of ultimate betrayal against the daughter she meticulously raised to rule the Hollywood social scene. But Steve is reportedly entirely unmoved by the emotional manipulation this time around, calmly reminding Marjorie that the very mansion she stands in, the couture wardrobe she wears, and the global lifestyle she enjoys are all funded by the empire he built, an empire he refuses to let Lori sink with her endless public drama. The ultimate power dynamic in the marriage has completely shifted, leaving Marjorie trapped between her fierce loyalty to her biological daughter and her desperate desire to retain her status as the queen of the Harvey empire. The public scrutiny is intensifying by the second, as the narrative surrounding Lori's lifestyle takes an even more precarious turn amid the ongoing whisper networks regarding elite high society circles. The internet is no longer just laughing at her dating spreadsheet. People are actively investigating the mysterious timelines of her luxury travels and her sudden appearances at highly exclusive international events. Anonymous insiders from within the elite aviation and luxury concierge industries are beginning to hint that the detailed logs of certain private yacht excursions and high-profile international gatherings are becoming a major topic of concern for corporate legal teams across the entertainment landscape. While Lori's publicists are trying to maintain the image of a successful, independent model traveling for work, the sheer volume of blind items and coordinated leaks connecting her to high-earning, elite arm candy networks has created an atmosphere of absolute toxicity around her name. Steve's tactical decision to build an immediate corporate firewall around his personal wealth and television networks is looking more and more like a brilliant chess move, as it ensures that regardless of what explosive truths may eventually hit the mainstream press, the Harvey brand will remain completely untouched and fundamentally safe from the fallout. This dramatic shift has allowed Steve's biological children to finally experience a long-awaited period of complete peace, validation, and professional elevation within their father's immense media landscape. For over a decade, the biological siblings had to take a back seat to a stepdaughter, who was treated like the ultimate, flawless crown jewel of the family, despite her continuous contribution of chaos to the family name. Now that the golden child has been permanently removed from her pedestal, Steve is reportedly spending a massive amount of personal time and financial resources rebuilding his relationships with his biological sons and daughters. They are currently being integrated into the executive leadership of his major production companies, taking over international business ventures, and commanding the respect they were denied for years during the height of Lori's favoritism. The atmosphere within the true Harvey bloodline is one of absolute triumph, as they watch their father finally prioritize the legacy of his actual blood over the calculated ambition of a stepdaughter, who viewed their family honor as nothing more than a personal corporate stepping stone. As the curtain begins to fall on this historic Hollywood saga, the ultimate reality is setting in for Lori Harvey, who is learning that in the ruthless world of high society entertainment, an independent brand is only as strong as the institutional power backing it. The protective alpha dad who once shielded her from hit-and-run scandals, public mockery, and industry predators has permanently stepped out of the picture, leaving her to face the full force of the Hollywood wilderness completely on her own. The untouchable illusion has been entirely shattered, the corporate funds have dried up, and the ultimate leading man she once discarded is leading the entire industry in a chorus of laughter at her spectacular downfall. Steve Harvey has officially rewritten his final relationship blueprint, and this time, The lesson is clear. You can play the game as hard as you want, but the moment your choices threaten the legacy of the man who gave you your name, you will find yourself swiftly, legally, and permanently shown the exit door of the kingdom. Now, let's be entirely real for a second, because this entire situation is absolutely wild. Do y'all see exactly why Steve Harvey would allegedly want to completely cut ties and disown Lori at this point? If your stepdad built a multi-million-dollar global empire entirely based on family values, traditional relationship blueprints, and respectable codes of conduct, and you're out here providing the gossip blogs with endless, messy tea, wouldn't you reach your absolute breaking point too? Did Lori finally play her ultimate cards completely wrong by letting the untouchable golden child illusion shatter? Or do you think Steve is being way too harsh on her just to protect his corporate sponsors and financial pockets? And what do y'all think about Michael B. Jordan and his camp allegedly sitting back in the wings, laughing, and throwing masterclass tactical shade at the entire Harvey downfall? Is this the official end of Lori Harvey's historic reign as the internet's favorite elite arm candy? Or will she somehow find a way to navigate this brutal Hollywood wilderness without the ultimate patriarch backing her every single move? I am absolutely dying to know what your thoughts are on this massive family civil war. So definitely drop your wildest theories and opinions in the comments section down below. If you want to stay completely ahead of the game on every single piece of breaking entertainment truth, celebrity exposés, and the messy behind-the-scenes drama that the industry tries so desperately to hide, make sure you hit that like button right now, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for more continuous updates.